So you gotta look for your complement. So it's very important that you join the right ecosystem so that you get access to the right kind of partners for deal flow and capital. The key to scaling, really at the end of the day, is to build and leverage your team. And you got to build and leverage your team to, number one, overcome your lack of apartment investing experience by leveraging your professional team so that brokers and investors take you seriously. Number two, to raise enough capital to fund your deals by leveraging partners. And then number three, to avoid big mistakes by having experienced advisors guide you through when you're doing a live deal. Again, the thing is that people always ask me, how did you do this? And I always say, look, I'm going to tell you how I did it, and then you do the same exact opposite. Because I've made so many mistakes, and so the good news is now I can actually tell you what mistakes to avoid. And today, if you were to come work for us, for example, we'll say, well, you're not going to do this. We're going to do this other way because we've kind of figured this out. So we're going to talk about building a team around you for those various different reasons. And I call that being deal ready. We talk a lot about the 4 pillars, and deal ready is the first pillar because you have to do these things first before you get to the other 3 pillars, before you learn to analyze deals, before you talk to brokers and get deal flow, and before you raise capital, you have to become deal ready. And most people, almost all people, don't do this unless they listen to us long enough. They follow a single family house investing mindset. And so this is what you have to do first before you do any of those things. So we're going to talk about becoming deal ready kind of like in 3 parts. Because there's really kind of 3 parts of this. The first one is to build your team of professionals around you so that you can leverage their track record. Number 2, you're going to find the right partners so that you get access to deals and to capital. And then number 3, part of deal ready is to leverage your advisors to scale faster and avoid big mistakes. So that's what I want to talk to you about here today. So let's get into part 1, building your team of professionals so that you can leverage their track record. Now, there's several important people on your team. Brokers obviously are important to get deal flow, but I want to talk about the 2 really important members on your team, and that is your property manager and your lender or your loan broker. Those are the 2 first and most important members on your team. So why is that important? Why is a property manager important on your team? Well, number 1, typically your property manager is going to be your boots on the ground, right? Because typically I'm going to assume that you're not investing in your backyard. If you are, great, but I'm going to assume that you're not. So you need a boots on the ground. That's your property manager, but also that property manager can help you with underwriting, right? How else are you going to know what the rent growth should be, what your expenses should be, what your occupancy is, blah, blah, blah. All these things come from a property manager. That's what you put in your underwriting. Also, the property manager helps you in due diligence. They'll actually literally walk the property with you or bring in their general contractor, and they oftentimes do the property inspection for you at no cost if you hire them to manage the property. So it's very important to leverage their experience for due diligence. And of course, they'll finally manage the property. The loan brokers are very similar, right? How are you going to know what interest rate to use, what the loan to value is, what the liquidity and net worth requirements are? All the things you need in underwriting to get into a deal, your loan broker is going to help you. Now, so those are all very important, but the biggest thing, at least in the beginning, to overcome this lack of experience is their experience. Imagine if you now called a broker. Now, the quick story is back in 2006 when I took this commercial real estate class, I would call brokers back in Texas, I think. So for some reason, we're calling brokers in Texas at the time. So I'm calling these brokers, and at the time, 2006, I had maybe done a couple of flips and I had a rental. And I would call them up and say, hey, I'm XYZ, Michael, and I'm a real estate investor, send me some deals. And I said, well, great, cool. How many apartments have you done? And I said, well, none, but I got a couple of flips here. And he goes, oh, cool. Well, how about this? You send me your proof of funds and I'll send you some deals. And I'm like, at the time I didn't have any proof of funds because I deployed all my capital in these restaurants, and so I was kind of stuck. And now I know that's what brokers say to make newbies / tire kickers go away, and they perceive me as one of those people, and I just didn't seem serious and credible to them. Now imagine if I call that same broker up and I say, hey, my name is Michael. I'm working with Sam at XYZ Property Management Company. They manage 5,000 units. I'm working with Bill over here at XYZ Lending Company to originate $1 billion of loans. And, oh, Sam and Bill, yeah, they're great guys. Yeah, fantastic. Done a bunch of business with them. Now all of a sudden, they're never going to ask me what my track record is because I have a team around me. So this is an example of who, not how, where instead of saying, how do I gain experience by investing in real estate for 5 to 10 years before I call brokers, where you can almost instantly, within 30 days, have a team built around you and now overcome that major objection. So this is why building a team is incredibly important and allows you to break into a business that requires track record without actually having a track record yourself, becoming deal ready. Now, how do you find these team members? And really the number one source is referrals. I mean, yes, you can go on Google and stuff like that, but really referrals is the way to go. And the gateway to a lot of these professionals is your broker, right? You're gonna find your brokers on probably LoopNet is a great place to find the brokers and start calling them. And the brokers know everybody, right? Say, hey, well, who's your favorite property manager? You see a lot of P&Ls, who does a good job, who shows up most frequently. Hey, what about loans, right? What kind of loan broker do you like? Who does a good job? And now you're getting into the game of people who don't just know each other, but they've done business with each other as well. So the number one, becoming deal ready and building your team, is your professionals around you. But the second part of building your team is to find the right partners. We talked about that in that Birmingham deal that I didn't have partners. And today it's very important to have partners to get into a network, the right network that gives you access to the right people for deal flow and capital. Now, the reason this is important is there's two primary roles in the syndication, and the two primary roles are capital raiser and deal finder. Now, that doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to know how to raise money or you know how to find deals, but simply from a personality perspective, you're going to gravitate to one or another. So, for example, deal finders tend to be more analytical, more comfortable with numbers, more detail-oriented. They really gravitate more to deal finding and analyzing deal, doing due diligence, maybe even managing the property, etc. And then the capital raisers tend to be more relationship people. They may not be as good with numbers or comfortable with numbers, but they're really good with relationships. They may also have access to other networks of capital as well. And in our ecosystem, there's almost a 50-50 break between the two. And so while everybody should know the fundamentals of syndications, capital raisers should know how to underwrite deals. It doesn't mean they're going to be underwriting deals all day, but they should know about it. Same thing with deal finders. They should know and actually raise capital, but their primarily role is deal finding, right? So this is why almost 100% of our students are doing deals with joint ventures, because 1 + 1 is far greater than 2. If you have one person, all they're doing is looking for capital, right? And one person, all they're doing is looking for deals, their probability of doing a deal goes way up, and the deal is going to be much bigger than if you're splitting a time between the two of them. Now, the other reason this is important is that you can network more intentionally. So if you're more a deal finder and you're networking, going to conferences or meetups or virtual events, and you know you're a deal finder, you have deal flow, what you're looking for is you're looking for capital raiser. And there's a lot of them out there. There's, just like I said, from a personality perspective, same thing for a capital raiser. You're going to be looking for more a deal finder. It doesn't make any sense if you're a deal finder to partner with another deal finder. It makes no sense, right? So you gotta look for your complement. So it's very important that you join the right ecosystem so that you get access to the right kind of partners for deal flow and capital. So it's important then to build your team from that perspective as well. And part 3 is to leverage advisors. These are senior, more experienced people, and put them on your team so that you can scale faster and avoid big mistakes. And these are either volunteer advisors, or you may have to pay for advisors so that they support you. For example, when I started flipping houses, I actually had an advisor, a coach, to help me figure out how to do the marketing, how to make the phone ring, how to send out postcards, what to say on the phone. And so that was very fruitful. And off my first postcard campaign, I literally got 2 deals off of that. It would have taken me months and years to figure it out on my own. On the other hand, as I described earlier, I didn't have that for my first apartment building, and of course, it was a disaster. An example here, I was talking to a guy by the name of John, and he was talking about how he lost $30,000 on a deal. I'm like, oh my gosh, John, what happened? And I'm listening to him. He's making like one mistake after another. I'm like, ooh, that's not good, right? So he starts doing his due diligence and starts spending money, right? Versus, for example, a property inspection that he paid for, and he got the loan process started before he even looked at the financials. So that's free, right? So why start spending money? And then he didn't start raising money until he got under contract, right? So all that compounded together, and he wasn't able to raise. He didn't have any partners, right? And so all that compounded together, he could not close in the deal and lost all of his due diligence costs and his deposit on this $30,000 mistake because he didn't have an advisor on board helping him. So definitely make sure that you have someone experienced on your team, like I said, someone that you get through networking, or someone that you may have to pay for as well. So there you have it. Become deal ready before you start talking to any kind of brokers, any kind of investors, making offers. Make sure that you build your team together, because through your team, not only can you leverage your track record, which is very important as you're dealing with brokers and investors, but it's also important as you get into the deal and you do underwriting, certainly, so you know what numbers to put in your analysis. It's also important to be able to find the right partners for access to deal flow, and then have the right advisors on your team so you can scale faster and make less mistakes. And we'd love to work with you on that. If you're looking and you're ready for an advisor on your team, we'd love to be that advisor. So If that's you right now, then have that conversation. You go to thefreedompodcast.com and you can just choose to book a call there. We'd have a conversation with you on that. And The Freedom Podcast is where to go to find out more about us and working with us so that we can help you scale beyond your flips and your rentals you've done so far. So hopefully you were inspired by that. Don't make the mistakes I have. Build your team and be much better prepared to get started with apartments now, and it doesn't have to be in 5 to 10 years. So with that, catch you later.